emotional damn.
Apparently when Big Bubba Baby Oil Bubby... When Big Bubba Baby Oil Bobby B. Budiansky first came up with Shockwave, he wanted him to be like the Transformers version. Doesn't make any sense. I wrote the script ages ago. I'm just reading it back and realizing how mental it is. Okay. Apparently when Big Bubba Baby Oil Bobby B. Budiansky first came up with Shockwave, he wanted him to be like the Transformers version of Spock.
Is there something I can do for you, Captain? Like what? Well...
No emotions! No emotions is the point I'm trying to make here. For a bot that supposedly had his emotions removed, this dude sure does freak the out on occasion. Like, here's an example to illustrate the kind of guy he normally is. In the heatiest of heat of battle with Scorponok here, he pauses to state, "As I have no overriding imperative to truncate your existence, it would be logical to stand down your weapon systems immediately." You see what I mean, but he's not always like this. This video is going to highlight all the times the mask has slipped, veneer has peeled, and a bot renowned for his emotionlessness has lost his shit. First example, Regeneration 1. So here, Megatron returned with a vengeance after he was blowed up by Ratchet at the end of the original Marvel run. When he came back, he went on a mad rampage to try and goad his old enemy Optimus into a massive final showdown. Then he redirected human nukes back at them to burn the world in a nuclear holocaust. He reanimated the various deceased Decepticons and Autobots in the Ark stasis capsules as lobotomized zombies that would eliminate the last of the human resistance. And he lobotomized Starscream, as well as disabling Shockwave, mutilating him up a bunch, and wiring him into the Ark systems to serve as its base operating system after the original OS had been destroyed. Shockwave started to regain consciousness though, and realized that he was more of a mind without a body, whereas Starscream was more of a body without a mind. So he remotely patched into Starscream's mind to remove some of the blocks that Megatron had placed there. The two collaborated to work against Megs and Galvatron, with them taking control of the Ark, setting a Guardian drone on him to distract him while Starscream fired an anti-comet beam at him. They also worked together to use the Ark's firepower on Bludgeon's ship, the War World, to try and destroy that. Then Starscream became possessed by an entity called the Four and started spouting prophecies identifying Jyaxus as one of the five and vowing some kind of revenge. This entity within Starscream guided the Ark to an area of space consisting of a multitude of cyberform planets linked together to form the hub. And whilst they were en route to this place, the entity rebuilt Shockwave's body. The entity was the underbase and needed Starscream and Shockwave to reunite the mind of Jyaxus into their fold. It's at this point that the hub was attacked by the Wreckers, who were on the verge of destroying it when Shocky looked down at the abandoned husk in front of him, remembered that they'd just been through absolute hell together, and made the emotional decision to save him. It could be that the otherworldly influence of the underbase may have awakened dormant emotional processes within him when it rebuilt his body. This would explain why he noticed the feeling, whereas past Shockwave would have just buried it. But I prefer to think that it was this moment that he acknowledged that laying before him was the closest thing that he had to appear in suffering, which, even if he wouldn't admit it, created an emotional resonance within him. When you consider the context that at this stage Cybertron was all but dead, Earth had been nuked, Starscream is the only familiar node in a universe that no longer resembles anything logical. Did he consider him a friend? I wouldn't go that far. I think Shockwave would probably know better. But I do think that he recognized that he and Starscream were the last witnesses, the last voices, the last ones to understand the link to their former civilization. Holy goddamn, I'm just now realizing this might be my last video of 2025. Where the hell did 2025 go? But just a quick word to say thanks for sticking by the channel in what was kind of a lean year for Transformers, let's face it. Now, I'll still be churning out stuff in 2026, whether there's new TF media or not, but it's the fact that you guys are still out there watching that really keeps me going, so thank you. Right, back to it. He had a bit of a freak out here upon arriving to Earth and found that it was only Frenzy and Thundercracker there to welcome him, because most of the other cons were tied up in the Galvatron Time Wars situation arc. So found the Decepticon force fractured, scattered across time, or captured by the Autobots. Quite a theatrical reaction, I think you'll admit. He does the same thing a few panels later, but that's a pain reaction as he's being zapped across time. But this one here is just like arms in the air, proper fucking Kermit the Frog moment. But you know what though? This was just one example of early Marvel Shockers having emotion, and his rivalry with Megatron definitely brought out these moments of logical rage. I mean, his most common display of emotion would have been his arrogance and ego. Not nearly as bad as Megatron, but he would be like, haha, you foolish humans have no chance against my amazing armor, you know, stuff like that. This time right here that Frenzy threw a temper tantrum clearly irked him big time as he sicked Buzzsaw on him to chill him out. This was just a mild irk though. I don't feel like he was ever out of control here.
But here, he lost control big time. This was the time that he chased Buster right the way through the night.
After Buster beat the hell out of Frenzy in his new mech suit. At the end of this long and exhausting chase, where Buster kept evading him and laying traps for him, he gradually got more and more frustrated. Shockwave managed to grab him and was about to tear him inside out when Buster threw sand in his eye, and he lost his shit altogether. Apparently, and I'm quoting the text here, the darkness this brought about revived memories of his 4 million year burial and his humiliating swamp submergence. All this combined made him furious to a point that you rarely see, a degree where he ended up just blasting wildly around in the air and yelling, "Die, die, die!" This seething subsided quickly though, as Prime arrived with a bunch of backup.
Hello there.
And traded Shockwave his freedom in exchange for Buster. So Logic took the reins again, and Shockwave agreed to the deal.
Then there was the time he had way too much of the espresso depresso.
Yep, he had a full mental breakdown here when past and future collided, bringing together a version of Galvatron from one timeline, a future Megatron, and a clone of Megatron. Basically, it's a head-fuck plotline that would turn anyone into a mumbling idiot.
Like really, it could be a Chris Nolan movie.
It happens when Cyclonus accidentally blurts out that he will kill Shockwave at some point in the future, but because Cyclonus is already here in the past, it creates this kind of paradox, and Shockwave realizes that he's dealing with a future he cannot logically predict, an event cycle that should be impossible, and a direct threat to his own existence that he cannot model or prevent. And for Shockwave, this is the equivalent of shattering the laws of physics. So how did he react? Well, he strung up Cyclonus on the wall like a trophy and shot Scourge simply for trying to retrieve Cyclonus' body. It wasn't until Scourge, even though he was injured, revealed that a rift in space-time had formed because Cyclonus died out of sequence, and to close the rift, Cyclonus must be returned to the correct temporal point. So Scourge threw himself in, bloop, that did nothing, and Shockwave threw Cyclonus in, which closed the portal. But his total loss of control, and the way he regained clarity once he understood the situation as a logical sequence again, shows you what a control freak he is. The Japanese dub of Transformers Prime definitely gave their incarnation a more emotional tone than what we had in our version, where the voice actor Kenta Miyake portrayed him as a kind of grizzled old man with a gravelly voice and a short temper. Basically giving us Grumpwave. He had this weird verbal tick too, where he had to punctuate the end of every sentence by yelling the word shock or shoku. He was at it again in the 2019 IDW continuity, where he threatened to rip Mindwipe's wings off after he disobeyed orders and requisitioned a bunch of troops and left the base without permission, basically leaving the base vulnerable and forcing Shockwave to evacuate. The 2019 incarnation was extremely controlled, cold, and calculating, but this blatant open violation of his authority, a violation that threatened his entire long-term plan, plus you add to all of that the fact that he had just taken the beatdown of his life from an amped-up Megatron, that was a physical humiliation as well as a loss of prestige in front of his own lieutenants. You throw all that into the mix, well, you can see how his usual balance was probably thrown a little out of whack. He was disgusted by Starscream's groveling here, and he laughed his ass off here, laughing with glee that Cyclonus and Scourge had willingly stepped into the first phase of his trap to eliminate them. Yes, he's gone and hired Death's Head to kill Rodimus, knowing that Cyclonus and Scourge would do anything to get one over on him, because he gave him a beatdown earlier. Essentially, Shockwave had got stuck with these two after Galvatron died, and yeah, he basically got bored with them. According to this panel, this was a laugh that was heard across Cybertron. Look at it. He did show distress to see the return of Galvatron, worrying about the amount of fish he would punch, I guess. No, really, he really shit himself here. His head literally spinning, and he accidentally fired off a shot that nearly takes off Soundwave's head. And in this panel, he's literally quaking. He's shivering. Look, I can honestly say I have never seen him like this before. But let's talk about Shock Blast.
Yeah, no emotions there at all.
Now, on one hand, he still had his cold side, like here, he just emotionlessly used Padlock as a shield, just cold as ice. But they made him much more emotional and erratic too. Frustration boiling over here. Yeah, he got pissed off here because he was demoted and put under the command of Snowcat, which was bizarre. In fact, several explicit moments of anger throughout the show. Pointless rivalry with Tidal Wave, that was just like a who's got the biggest dick competition. And he's often impulsive and reckless, and here he's desperate when Megs refuses to save him.
I get the feeling he's really gonna leave me here. Well, I don't need anybody, especially you, Megatron!
All emotions. In Transformers 1, Shockwave clearly had not yet fully purged his emotions, unlike the classic G1 version. However, his emotions are severely suppressed, compartmentalized, maybe, because his emotions definitely burst through to the surface on occasion, notably signs of stress and irritability when B got under his skin.
Especially when he was unconscious.
IDW Shockwave pre-Imperator was apparently full of emotion and loved bright colors and going to happy parties and laughing while bouncing on trampolines and stuff. But even after Imperator and the purging of his emotions, there were tiny rare glimpses of emotion in there. For example, the time he chose to spare Diatlas. Perhaps there was some logical reason to keep him alive, some advantage to be gleaned further down the line, or perhaps it was the smallest touch of sentimentality for a bot that was a former colleague of his, perhaps even a friend. And of course there was that time that he used his emotions as a weapon. Remember that battle with the Dinobots? Yeah, all 5 Dinobots, where he activated a rage subroutine to turn him into the fucking Doomslayer. But yeah, largely IDW was one of the most emotionally watertight incarnations, but emotion would ultimately be his downfall and cause the crumbling of his multi-millennia spanning plot to reduce the galaxy into a fuel source to power Cybertron with, when the sight of seeing Megs abandon his cause caused all of the repressed emotions to explode out, causing a huge confusion lapse and mind melt. He laughed his ass off in animated when Lugnut got put on his ass. Yeah, Lugnut was kind of a rival of his, but with Lugnut's insecurity and being desperate to be seen as Megatron's most loyal servant, I mean, they even fight physically a couple of times. But the fact that he just burst out laughing here is both a humorous outburst, but also very deliberate cruelty, like just laughing in his face. It was closer to sadism than joy. Whoa, Nelly! Energon Universe, this guy just had emotion exploding out of every one of his interface ports. I mean, at some points, he's still really cold and detached, like here, where Jazz is winding him up. He belts him around the face, but he's like, please do not test my patience. But then at other times, goading, unhinged hilarity, laughing and orgasming with joy here after he defeated Prime. He was in awe when he saw these whales, not because of their natural beauty necessarily, but because he saw a good bioenergy resource for him to mince. Another orgasm here as he watches the whales get fed into the mincer. Probably a good thing that it's cropped in such a way that we can't see where his hands are touching. And yeah, back to when he first saw the whales, he ran excitedly out of the room like a little girl on her way to a Frozen sing-along. He laughs again here when he sees what his months of torture have reduced Ultra Magnus to. He just laughs at the worst things. And his fury here when Optimus reminded him about a previous beating he gave him. He was distraught when his harvester got destroyed, when Devastator fell on it. Yeah, we gotta do the no, haven't we? No! Classic. And outright disdain for the Combaticons here, scolding them with some serious verbal venomy poo-pooing just for asking about their comrades Brawn and Onslaught. There's extra agitation in this one because it's a question he knows they won't like the answer to. Oh my god, look at Brawl. So when they ask like how our brothers are doing, he's like, well, one's got his legs.
He's driving me nuts.
In Earthspark, he was utterly disgusted to learn that Terrans were hybrids, calling them
Abominations. Accidents of the Ember Stone.
And in fact, his whole quest for vengeance right here on his old leader felt more emotion-based than logic-based for sure. The Dreamwave one was also pretty watertight and controlled, not a lot beyond the usual power fixation and obsession with control, a little bit of contempt towards Ultra Magnus here. Other than that, this one's pretty clean. A little bit of sadism here when he took personal pleasure in blasting Ratchet, stating that he always hated him. Hates an emotion. And he was pretty frustrated at having to serve under Cobra Commander. In this one though, there's a huge outpouring of rage when Soundwave dies. In this comic, their relationship was described as brotherly. So in a fit of fury, he tried to rip an aircraft carrier in half, then immolated many G.I. Joes with an I-beam, yelling, "Fry, Earthworms!" He would also launch himself at Prime in an effort to get Soundwave's body back. But later he would calm down, declaring that he wouldn't let such sentimental emotions get to him again. In the turn-based strategy game Awakening, he apparently lost control when the Zell Quartz, which was basically a super energon crystal, overloaded him, causing him to run wild. I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but there's something about the phrasing that makes me think he got loaded during spring break and went around flashing his boobs for beads. So I think the conclusion that should be drawn here is that we often forget that Shockwave actually does have emotion like all the other bots, but one way or another they are suppressed deep down within him, either because he himself deleted his subroutines to prioritize logic, or because they were forcibly removed, like in IDW. And I absolutely love that his emotionlessness seems to be the source of his greatest strength, but also that this repression is so extreme that it creates pressure points, moments where emotion resurfaces not as empathy, but as distortion, fixation, or collapse, often with disastrous results. Anyway, let's leave that there for now. Let me know if I forgot any examples of him going batshit in the comments below. I think this might be the last vid before Christmas, so I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you for all the support you guys have given the channel this year, all the support you've given me this year, in what has not been a great year for Transformers, but you guys have been watching all the same. Let's hope that 2026 shakes out better. Enjoy the festivities, and I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and cheerio, bye!